How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Dylan again. Today I am going to talk a little bit about, about diet, healthy living, and veganism. So the vegan lifestyle, because I am myself a vegan. And so, I'd just like to share it with you. I would like to, tell you guys some facts about it, some things, some information, some data, and just share some stuff with you. Obviously everybody, makes a choice for themselves, how they want to live, which ways they want to live, and so on and so forth. And this video is not going to necessarily just be strictly about, veganism, but it's also going to be about, just a healthy lifestyle in general. I've recently started, a detox regimen that I'm going to, talk a little bit about and introduce to you as well. I'm going to let you in on, my workout routine a little bit, kind of outline that a little bit. So I'm just going to go over a few things, and hopefully, ideally, hopefully people can take some of this stuff and implement it in your own lives to, live a healthier and happier life. So to start with, I think I'd like to just, obviously start a little bit general. So, what does it mean to live healthy, right? What does it mean to be healthy, and, have a healthy lifestyle? Well, for me, it means a few things. First and foremost, I believe that the most important things that we have in the world individually is our body and our mind. Two most important things that we have, and we need to take care of those. And not only do we need to take care of those, but we also need to exercise them. So healthy living to me means eating properly, sleeping well, making sure that you're hydrated, and having adequate activity, physical activity, exercise in your life, as well as taking care of your mind, stimulating it, reading, going to school, things like that. Really to grow and build yourself as a person in all ways. And for me, right now, I'll admit that I'm not exactly where I want to be in life. I've had a lot of struggles, a lot of hardships, trials, tribulations, and obstacles to overcome, and I'm still working on that. And I still, have a lot to grow and develop myself as a person. I'm not perfect. I have flaws. I make mistakes, and I'm working to grow. For me, right now at this point in my life, I am focusing primarily on the three main aspects: physically, mentally, and spiritually. I have a little mantra that I go by right now. So real quick, it goes: I am Dylan. I am healthy, and I am thankful for my healing. I am happy and allow only positivity into my life, and I am strong of body, mind, and spirit. So for me, it's focusing on those things. I'm trying to get myself back into school right now, which I should be starting in the fall, this upcoming fall semester. I'm making sure that I eat properly, that I, try to get the sleep that I'm supposed to. I try and make sure I'm hydrated. Like I said, I have a detox regimen that I'll talk about a little bit later. I work out 5 days a week doing various things. So I'm me, and then spiritually, to throw in on that too, is kind of just, being a all-around better, person, the best person that I can be, and, be positive, try and be upbeat. There's a lot of negativity in the world, and I would like to spread the positivity and reverse the trend of, bad that there is, negativity and hate and greed and all those things. But anyway, so I don't get too far off topic here. I'll go ahead and just kind of outline the things that I do in my life, to live a healthy lifestyle. So, like I said, I am vegan. So that's part of it, which I will get into more here in a bit. But like I said, I also work out 5 days a week, which I'll go into that a little bit real fast. Basically, Monday through Friday, during the work week, I work out, which entails weight training, calisthenics, and cardio. So every day, Monday through Friday, I do all three of those things. I do a set of weight training, I do a set of calisthenics, and a run. So my cardio. For my weight training regimen, I do separate days. I do specific days. I have 5 separate days for different muscle groups. So Mondays, I do my chest day. Tuesdays, I do legs. Wednesdays, I do arms. Thursdays, I do core. And Fridays, I do back and shoulders. And then, like I said, Monday through Friday, I do a run. And then my calisthenics portion consists of, I start off with, I have 4, basic core, real basic core exercises. My core day goes more in depth and more intense, workouts. But basic core exercises and, a little bit of upper body, doing like push-ups and pull-ups. So I do sit-ups. I use weight with that. I hold a 20-pound weight. And then I do also scissor kicks and bicycles and Roman twists, the side to side. And then I also do standard grip push-ups, wide grip push-ups, diamond push-ups, and then I do a set of pull-ups as well. And that is my calisthenics portion. So that's basically my workout routine. It's pretty simple. It separates, like I said, different muscle groups on different days, so I don't overwork any one muscle group at a time. I'm working on pretty much everything, a little bit at least every day, but not high intensity. Not for super long durations of time, and then I mix it up, so like I said, there's the weight training, has its purpose to build, stronger, denser muscle, to put on mass, and then I have my my calisthenics, which, obviously is just purely based off of, your own body weight. And so that's, a lower impact way to, tone up, to shape a little bit, stuff like that. And then cardio is obviously good for endurance and stamina, things like that as well. So it's, I try and be very well rounded. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Mouth was a little dry. So yeah, so basically, I mean, that's my workout regimen. 5 days a week, 2 days of rest, Saturday and Sunday. I don't do anything, physical and physically intensive, and I just, I rest on those days. I allow my body to heal and recover. Also, like I said, I mean, for me, honestly, the hardest part of my whole thing is probably the sleeping part. I'm kind of a night owl, so it's hard to get myself to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time, especially in the morning. But I'm working on that. That's obviously an area for me to grow. Like I said, I have a detox regimen that I just started recently, which, if you bear with me one moment. Here we go. So I'm gonna show this here to you. It is fantastic. Basically what it is it's a concoction, a powdered form of some of the superfoods. Good. Let's see. Here, I'll tell you what's in it. Protein, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, manganese, copper. Let's see. Organic spirulina powder, organic chlorella, organic kale freeze-dried powder, right? Because it's all in powder form. Organic kelp, organic spinach, organic broccoli. Let's see, beta berries. So it's got like goji, pomegranate. Let's see, I think it's got some strawberry. Right? Yep, strawberry. So it's got all of these different things that are super, super good for you. Super good. Here, I'll show it to you. It's called Green Detox. It's from a guy named Thomas DeLauer. That's, who sells this product. It's actually rather affordable. I purchased it for it cost about $45 a month, roughly, is what it averages out to. Because I purchased a 6-month supply, so it comes out to about $45 a month. It's not bad, and it's doesn't have a whole lot of sugars. It tastes pretty good. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of like the apple cinnamon flavor, which is the flavor that it has, but that's not really a big deal to me, because the benefits are certainly worth it. But it's definitely something that I think, if you're really adamant about taking care of yourself, having a detox regimen is something very, very beneficial to you. I mean, there's so many toxins out there, and your body stores it in the fat, in your fat cells, in your organs and stuff like that, in your colon, your stomach, all these different places, and it builds up, and it causes all kinds of issues on a cellular level, really. And so it's good to have a daily detox regimen. This is something I've wanted to do for a while, but haven't really been able to find an economic, convenient, easy way to do it, right? Because it's either super expensive, super messy to juice things, so on and so forth. You got to find all the right, organic products and whatever, and he does it for you. So I'm kind of selling this product a little bit here, but definitely something you should check out. Green Detox. You can go to getgreendetox.com, and that's where I went to purchase it. Excuse me again. Just all in all, phenomenal product to add into, just to add another layer to your healthy living, right? So we've been talking about proper sleep, getting your 8 hours of sleep, whatever. I mean, I understand that there are people are different. Some people don't actually require a full 8. Some people are work well on 7. Some people need 9, right? But get an adequate amount of sleep. Take care of your body through exercising. Making sure that you're physically active, right? We talked a little bit about keeping yourself mentally healthy. And that can entail everything from learning, reading things, going to school and stuff, engaging your mind to all sorts of things. I mean, there's little games, mental games that you can play to really challenge your brain and stuff like that, right? There's various different things that you can do. But it's so important, so important to make sure that you are in a good mental state. I mean, that ties everything together. And so the last aspect of this that I want to talk about, as I had mentioned earlier, is that I want to talk about the vegan lifestyle a little bit, because all of that is great, right? Like I said, I mean, sleeping well, mental health, all that stuff's important. Having a detox to cleanse your body, all that's important. But obviously the things that you eat are super important as well, and they have a tremendous impact on how you feel, how you recover from things, how how your body just operates on, the tiniest, most minute levels, so you really got to take care of it. And if you're not eating properly, then you're introducing a lot of these toxins and stuff into your body that you would be wanting to get rid of with, like, the detox regimen. So real quick, I've been a vegan now for let's see, I want to say pretty close to a year at this point, and it's been going well. I've never felt better, and I guess you could say started my transformation, the transition over to this lifestyle after I watched a documentary entitled "What the Health." It's on Netflix. Definitely something you should check out. And so for this little portion, I recently rewatched the documentary, and I'm gonna go through. I took a bunch of little notes as I rewatched it, so I'm gonna go through this and I'm gonna discuss just real quick. It may seem a little disorganized, but I'm just gonna kind of throw a bunch of stuff out at you, and you can watch the documentary for yourself. It'll help string it all together, and all of this information, all of these facts and stuff that are in here in the documentary are easily verifiable. You can go to the websites, you can check out the information for yourself, you can do research. So obviously don't take my word for it, don't take anybody else's word for it. Do some research for yourself. But I'm here to to share some of this with you. So like I said, it might not entirely make a whole lot of sense as far as sequence of events. I might jump around a little bit talking about different things and then go back to something after going to another topic, so bear with me. But I'm just gonna rattle off a bunch of stuff. So here I go. So and I followed along obviously with the movie, so it is chronological in that sense, but it might seem a little out out of sequence. First thing to start off, I guess I'm just going to read straight through this. So 1 of 3 Medicare dollars. Did you know that 1 out of 3 Medicare dollars is spent on the care of diabetes, people with diabetes, and treatments for it? 1 out of 10 overall dollars spent for healthcare is spent on diabetes. And this was information obtained in an interview in the documentary from a Robert Ratner, who works at the American Diabetes Association. I can't remember his exact title. You could watch the documentary for it, but he's like one of the head researchers or something like that. And so these are some figures from him. And did you also know that processed meats are considered a group 1 carcinogen, which puts them in the same categories as cigarettes, asbestos, and plutonium. And this is according to the World Health Organization. And unprocessed meats, or red meats, are considered a group 2 carcinogen. So when you eat these things, they have similar effects to that of a cigarette. It's essentially the eating form of a cigarette, as opposed to obviously smoking it. Did you know that 2 out of 3, 2/3 of adults are overweight or obese? Excuse me. And things, problems, diseases caused from that. Some things obviously that can come from obesity, being overweight: diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, dementia, cancer, stuff like that, right? And a lot of this stuff that they say in the documentary, that a lot of this stuff is based off of lifestyle choices, right? So what you eat, in other words, and that it's really preventable. It's really preventable. i.e. you got to eat the right things. Another doctor from the documentary had mentioned that if you, well, I mean, obviously you wouldn't be able to, check for yourself, but he had said that children generally today, by the age of 10, already have fatty streaks in their arteries, right? Let's see. Our medical field operates on the disease model these days. Treatment, not prevention. So they just want to treat you for your entire life. They just want to treat your ailments, your diseases, your cancers, as opposed to actually getting rid of them. Right? Because it's all about money. It's all about money, and they love to shovel, pills down people's throats. Okay, so moving on. Diabetes is not caused by carbs and sugars, right? It's not caused by eating carbs and sugars. It's not caused by a carb or sugar diet. This comes from a Dr. Neil Barnard, who is the clinical researcher, author, and president of PCRM. I forgot what PCRM stands for. I forgot to write it down, so I apologize for that. But it's in the documentary. Definitely look at it. And he goes on to say further that in actuality, now that we've been able to do more research, the more carbs you eat, the less diabetes you have, and the more fat you eat, the more diabetes you have. So more carbs, less diabetes; more fat, more diabetes. Sugar is not great for you, but it's not really bad for you either, because it is a plant. It does come from a plant, and you can eat sugars. Sugars are not inherently bad for you. Obviously you wouldn't want to live on a sugar diet, right? You wouldn't want to just eat all sugar, but it's not inherently bad for you. Obviously, once it gets processed and bleached and stuff like that, it gets worse for you. But raw sugar in and of itself is not inherently bad for you, and you can eat it. Did you know that 17 million people a year die from cardiovascular disease, which is the leading cause in the world? And according to Neil Barnard, Dr. Neil Barnard again, alcohol has a very small part to play in that. Sugar has a very small part to play in that. Smoking has a very large part to play in that. Excuse me. However, he states that a lot of people either just didn't smoke or are quitting nowadays. And I think that, with the way that the world is changing, that is slowly but surely phasing out. But he goes on to say that having an animal-based diet has a huge and pervasive effect, and is a major, the leading cause for why cardiovascular disease death is a leading cause for death in the world. Okay, so then it goes on to talk about the dead meat bacterial toxins. So human beings are not meant to eat flesh like that, and there's all kinds of parasites and toxins and stuff that we get from that. And when you eat meats and animal products, you get instant inflammation within your body. Excuse me. Not, days or weeks or months down the road. You actually have instant inflammation within your body, You get stiff arteries, and over time, it does get clogged with like plaque and stuff like that. Let's see. And they also went on to mention that chicken is actually one of the worst. So they talk about, a lot of these organizations today and stuff talk about, the American Cancer Society talks about, switching from red meat to chicken. But chicken is actually worse because they pump it full of sodium. They go on to say almost 800 milligrams sometimes. They also go on to say that, if you're selling people products that contain carcinogens, you're supposed to tell people, you're supposed to warn people about this, and they don't. There's no labels on the side of chicken or beef or pork that says, hey, this is carcinogenic, and if you eat it, it's going to cause both instant and long-term negative effects on your body, right? Supposed to, legally speaking, but obviously, you know, that's not the case. Let's see, they go on to say that prostate cancer is 4 times higher. The chances of getting prostate cancer, is 4 times higher when you eat chicken. And it's much higher, you know, when you have an animal-based diet. All kinds of diseases and cancers have been, you know, with the more studies that we're doing these days, you know, we're starting to realize that animal-based products, you know, have a very strong link to, you know, so many of the diseases that we have, and cancers and stuff like that, right? Excuse me. They go on to say that if you have 1 egg a day, that's like smoking 5 cigarettes in a day. You know, basically, more or less, right? And they go on to talk about, too, this is not in my notes, but they go on to talk about how, you know, an egg, the yolk of an egg in particular, it's made to create a baby bird, a baby chicken, without any outside force. It's complete, so it's nothing but saturated fat and cholesterol, right? And that's bad for you. That's insanely bad for your body. Then they go on to talk about how dairy has the highest levels of saturated fat, right? They go on to talk about how genetic diseases, a lot of these genetic diseases, like people think that if you have this genetic disorder, or you know, you have a predisposition to getting, you know, heart disease because your parents had it or whatever. It's not a death sentence because your parents had something. Proper diet can actually go a long way, and we're starting to realize, again, with, you know, the additional research and stuff that we've been doing these days, you know, we're finding out that if you start to eat a proper diet, you can negate and reverse these things, right? You can actually, the body is designed to be able to heal itself. You just have to take care of it. You have to lube it up, and you have to, you know, fuel it properly. That's like taking a really high-end sports car and putting regular gas in it, right? You don't do that to a high-performance machine. That's, otherwise you're gonna, you know, you're gonna have problems as, you know, upwards of having your engine lock up, right? So you just don't do it. The human body is the same way. They go on to talk about how, you know, fish has all kinds of terrible things in it. PCBs, saturated fat. Obviously, you know, our fish these days is completely, you know, soaked through, inundated with mercury. It's got tons of cholesterol, right? And it's terrible. These things, all of these things are really terrible for expecting mothers, right? For women who are pregnant or want to get pregnant, you shouldn't be having these things in your system because it's all going to eventually transfer to the body. They go on to talk actually a little bit more right after that about saying dioxins. There's one of the toxins in your body is called dioxins, and unfortunately, males, apparently, you know, like I said, all of this information is verifiable. You can look it up yourself. I'm just, you know, talking from my notes and from this documentary, and I have done, you know, additional research for myself. I did after, you know, watching this for the first time, and continue to do so. But males cannot naturally get rid of, you know, dioxins, and women, the way that they do it, they have 2 methods for getting rid of it. That is having a child, so in other words, transferring those dioxins to the child, those toxins to the child, or through their breast milk. which then subsequently obviously continues to transfer those toxins to, you know, an infant child. So the most crucial times in a baby's development, both in the womb and as an infant, you know, it's not going to help your child. You know, that's why a lot these days, so much these days, you see women having complications, C-sections, or, you know, emergency C-sections for, you know, various reasons, all kinds of complications, and you know, miscarriages and things like that, right? Let's see. Moving on. So, you know, in animal products, part of the problem is that not only is that you know, not only is the flesh, the meat, the muscles of these animals, you know, not only is the highly saturated fat and cholesterol containing yolk of a chicken's egg inherently bad because of the fact that they are carcinogenic, but, you know, they also end up having tons of pesticides and other pollutants in them. GMO, soy, steroids, hormones, antibiotics, right? All of this stuff accumulates up in the meat and everything, you know, and a lot of this stuff is given to them because of, you know, people. They house them in these you know, really tight quarters with lots and lots and lots of them. They die sometimes, lots of disease and stuff spreads, so they're pumping them through all this stuff that stores in the meat, and then you eat it. We all eat it. I ate it. And I'd like to say real quick that, you know, I was one of those kind of people that never thought that I would ever be a vegetarian or a vegan. I loved meat. I'm Italian, right? And Italians aren't Italians without having some meat, you know, some sausage and some meatballs and some pork chops and so on and so forth, right? Chicken and various things. I love going to, you know, I used to love going to B-dubs and getting, you know, chicken wings, right? My mango habanero chicken wings with some beer and a football game. Nothing better, right? But it's not good for you. Not a single bit of it is good for you. They go on to talk about how dairy is strongly linked to, you know, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, and multiple sclerosis. Cow milk is made for baby cows. It's made for baby cows. It is nature's substance to feed and nourish a baby cow, right? Egg yolk to build a baby chicken, right? A mother's breast milk to feed her baby. That's it. It's not meant for any other animal or any other species, right? We all know that the vast majority of people are lactose intolerant, right? And organic is not always better, in the sense that, you know, when it comes to the meats, the organic meats, right? Because you're still going to end up getting a lot of those, you know, pesticides and pollutants. It's impossible to avoid that until we start, you know, changing the laws and the agricultural standards and the manufacturing standards and the industrial standards, right? That's not going to go away. So you're still going to have these pollutants. And these, you know, you're still going to have the hormones and the antibodies, or I mean the antibiotics, excuse me, right? Because they're still going to be pumping them through all the, or pumping them full of all this stuff, because they're still going to be in tight quarters. There's still going to be disease spreading, right? You get things like, you know, E. coli and salmonella and mad cow disease, right? Stuff like that. All these different things. They go on further to talk about how milk, there have been so many studies these days about how milk actually, cow's milk, does not actually do anything for your bones. It does not strengthen your bones. And there have actually been studies that people who drink milk tend to have more hip fractures, more cancer, live shorter lives, and have more cases of osteoporosis. Whew. Then they go on to talk about IGF-1, which basically is a chemical that causes cancer to form and grow, and animal products boost that. Dairy so dairy increases your chance of prostate cancer by 34% for men. increases chance for death from breast cancer by 49%. Then they go on to talk about casein, which is the main protein in cow's milk, right? And a lot of, the protein in animal products, or the one of the primary proteins in a lot of animal products, right? When it enters the body, it becomes casomorphine, and then they go on to talk about that casomorphine latches onto the same receptors as heroin does, and that's why they're so great, right? Things that are greasy and fatty and buttery, they taste amazing. They're so good, right? Because of those casomorphines. They attach onto the same receptors, a nice good steak or some chicken wings, right? That when you eat those, the casein from that becomes casomorphine and attaches to the same receptors as heroin in the brain. And that, essentially is why, or that essentially becomes, an addiction to it. Right? Let's see. And then they go on to talk about how, and by the way, even human milk, right? The breast milk from a human mother, has casein in it, but very small amounts, and it's only intended for the development of the child, right? So human milk has only 2.7 grams of casein per liter, whereas cow's milk has 26 grams of casein per liter. That's almost 10 times. That's about 10 times as much. That's crazy. We don't need that. They also go on to talk about, going back a little bit, there's at least 450 known drugs given to livestock. 80% of the antibiotic sales from drug companies go to livestock and agriculture. They also go on to talk about how, all of these, antibiotics that we're pumping into animals these days, and ourselves as well, is starting to cause, an antibiotic resistance. These diseases and stuff keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So while all these medical companies and pharmaceutical companies are loving, a world and lifestyle where they get to just treat everybody's problems, perpetually, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And we are essentially breeding stronger and stronger diseases. They also go on to talk about how, the amount of waste produced by all of these animals, right? And the waste of 10 million pigs is the equivalent to 100 million humans. And that, livestock causes more greenhouse gases than the entire automobile industry. It's also the leading cause of deforestation and species extinction. Let's see. Moving on. They go on to talk about how if you have a vegan, whole food, plant-based diet, you can prevent and reverse diabetes, along with a lot of these other, diseases and cancers and genetic disorders. They go on to talk about how type 1 diabetes is strongly linked to dairy exposure from, young ages. Developing diabetes, and they talk about how, if your child gets diagnosed with diabetes, it's basically cutting 19 years off of their life, right? And then they start, going in talking about how all of these organizations and institutions that are supposed to be protecting us, like the ADA, the American Diabetes Association, the ACS, the American Cancer Society, the AHA, the American Heart Association, right? All these companies, they take money from all of the, manufacturers and industries that are providing us with these products that are very harmful to us, right? So like the ADA, American Diabetes Association, takes money from Dannon and Kraft Foods, Bumblebee, Velveeta, Oscar Mayer, and Lunchables. The American Cancer Society takes money from Tyson, Yum Foods, which is responsible for places like KFC and Taco Bell. The American Heart Association takes from the beef industry, the dairy industry, fast food industry, processed food manufacturers, poultry producers. Excuse me. Then they go on to talk about the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, right? The U.S. Department of Agriculture is supposed to create dietary guidelines for us, right? But they take money from McDonald's and the National Dairy Council, the American Meat Institution, Dannon, Hershey, etc. Excuse me. Right? So they highlight how, obviously, as always, it's about money. Right? So they're taking money, they get their money. So it's basically these companies and these corporations that write the guidelines, that tell you, what healthy living is, even though it's not true, even though it's completely false. And we have all of the information around us every day. We are super unhealthy. We are one of the fattest countries in the world at this point. Then they go on to talk about this thing that they refer to as federal checkoff programs. And basically what it is they find ways, like it's not legal to say that eggs are healthy or safe for you or nutritious, stuff like that, right? So they find ways, they find certain words, slogans, phrases to trick your mind, right? It's subliminal messaging, right? To trick your mind into thinking that it is good for you, even though it really isn't, and that it's actually harmful to you, right? And then they talk about how McDonald's, in particular, has, 6 employees, paid employees, that they found out about, that's paid for by a government program that is actually funded by the producers and manufacturers, to create these campaigns, ad campaigns and stuff, right? How can we, and you see it everywhere. All of these ads always talk about more meat and more cheese. How can we add more bacon on this and that and the other, right? I mean, it's everywhere. It's in our faces all the time, every day. And one of the ways that they do this is they target children, right? They put this stuff throughout schools. So you've seen all the milk advertisements and stuff throughout schools and so on and so forth, because they know that kids are impressionable. They'll get their parents to, buy these products because that's what they want. Then they go on to talk about how, all of these companies, which is, and this is very well known, that these companies use lobbyists, right, to influence laws, to make their own laws that benefit them and them only. And then they never pay any consequences. There's never any justice for the things that these, CEOs and corporations and so on and so forth do, right? Then they go on to talk about how the pharmaceutical industry controls what doctors learn. They're not properly taught about, things like nutrition and stuff like that. Let's see. They go on to talk about that Big Pharma wants you sick and taking drugs forever. Drugs don't stop the diseases. Remember, we talked about how it being treatment, not prevention, right? Let's see, political lobby spending. They went to talking about how some quick figures on the amount of spending certain industries do. Each of the big industries do on lobbying. Banks spend about $63.8 million. The defense lobbyists, $74 million. Oil and gas, $129.7 million. Big Pharma, $238 million spent a year on lobbyists to, create laws and stuff that are going to be beneficial to them. Then they go on and talk about how, back to, the waste byproducts of, all of these cows and pigs and so on and so forth, being raised in these tight enclosed spaces and all the waste that they produce. They say that there have been studies, samples taken from grocery stores. You can go around, they would go around to grocery stores and take samples of pork chops, ground beef, chicken breast, right? And they would find 88% fecal contamination. Shit, people. That is shit in your food. Ground beef, 90%. Chicken breast, 95% fecal contamination. Then they go on and talk about how protein comes from plants. It doesn't come from meat, right? All proteins are actually made in plants first. The cows get them because they eat the grass. But guess what? Most of your beef production these days, they are fed corn. They are fed, and then they're pumped full of, hormones and steroids and antibiotics, right? So they're not even being fed properly. But the fact is you don't even need it, because you can get your protein and everything else that you need elsewhere, right? And one of the doctors said that I think it was a cardiologist, he said he has never ever seen anybody come in with a protein deficiency. So it's not about where do you get your protein, but people do go into the doctor all the time and have fiber deficiencies, are not getting enough fiber in their diet. Excuse me. But when you eat a plant-based whole food diet, you're getting your fibers and you're getting more than enough protein still, along with all the rest of your vitamins and minerals, right? They talk about how you can get protein from rice, beans, greens, and other vegetables, right? Stuff like that. You get protein and fiber and everything else. Then they go on to talk about the amount of protein in 100 per 100 grams of milk for different animals, right? So they go in and talk about this. They were talking a little bit more about how human milk is made for humans, cow's milk is made for cows, right? So in human milk there's 1 gram of protein per 100 grams of milk. Then and we have the lowest. Human beings have the lowest out of any species. Rats have 9 grams, gorillas 1.4, donkeys 1.8, cows 3.6, cat 9. So we are a creature, by nature, the milk of a human being has 1 gram of protein in it. Why do we need to be consuming something that has 3.6, which is cow's milk? We don't. Then they go on to talk about how, a lot of the strongest animals in nature, and that's the thing, man, all of this is really simple. You just have to look at the physiology of human beings, and you have to look to nature for the answers. Science is what we use to verify and prove things, right? Science is what we use to take an idea, a theory, and we apply the scientific method to come up with conclusions, proof, right? Data, information. But some of the strongest animals in nature are herbivores, are frugivores, right? Elephants, gorillas, bison, rhinos. Even bears, who are, omnivores, they also still eat plants. Then they go on to talk about how, because a lot of people, are afraid that, they're not going to get all the protein they need, or that, they're going to not get all the nutrition and vitamins and stuff that they need if they go on a plant-based diet. But studies are starting to show, and the thing is they go in and they talk a lot about in here too about how, these companies, just like they have lobbyists to create laws for them, they also have scientists and stuff that, put together these fake studies to so-called, prove what they say, and they don't actually do anything. They just basically fucking, put this report together that says, oh, we did this, that, and the other, and, there's really no substantial proof or evidence of that. They're just saying it and so they can be like, oh, well, this doctor says, let's see. But so we're starting, to realize more and more doctors and nutritionists and stuff these days are starting to learn and realize that, the vitamin and nutritional value of a plant-based diet is actually much, much higher than having a meat or animal-based diet, right? So then they go in and start talking about the physiological differences between true omnivores, right, meat-eating animals, or carnivores, right? Omnivores or carnivores, and frugivores or herbivores, right? So omnivores, meat-eating animals, have very sharp teeth. Don't fool yourself into thinking because we have canines that means somehow we're supposed to be eating meat. No. These are very blunt. Our canines are very blunt. They are not designed for ripping and tearing flesh. And I'd like to say, if human beings were really designed to eat meat, we would be designed to eat it raw, right? We would have sharp teeth in which we could rip and tear the flesh. We don't, right? Then they go on and talking about the jaw movement, right? Carnivores and omnivores, their jaws go up and down. But frugivores and herbivores, plant-eating animals, they go up and down, forward and back, side to side, right? Then we go on and talk about our stomach acid. The stomach acid of meat-eating animals is far more acidic. Far more acidic, far more powerful. Less acidic, less powerful for us. Then they talk about the intestine length. For meat-eating animals, they have to have a very short intestinal tract so that way the decaying flesh can pass through it quickly, right? And the intestine length is about 3 times the body length of a carnivore. Human beings and other frugivore herbivores, it's 9 times the body length. Far too long to have decaying flesh in your stomach for that long of time period. Then they go on and talk about how plant-based diets reduce heart disease, by 99.4%. Coronary artery disease, hypertension, diabetes, stroke, heart attack, autoimmune diseases, lupus, asthma, osteoporosis, arthritis. All of these things can be reduced and reversed by having a plant-based diet, and obviously doing other things as well, like we talked about before, you know, hydration and sleep and all that stuff. They talk more about, you know, doctors not being taught about nutrition. And then finally, you know, towards the end, they talk about how, you know, it doesn't have to be as difficult or as hard or as expensive as you would think. I will agree that, you know, it is hard, and especially if you don't live in a place like I live in. Like, I live in North Hollywood, California. I live in LA, right? So here there's, you know, Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and Sprouts and all these places I can go. I understand that not every place you can in the country you can have access to those things, right? The information and the support and the resources is sometimes hard to come by, right? But it doesn't have to be, and it's getting easier and better. One website that they talk about in the documentary is plantbasedonabudget.com. You can go there and they can give you grocery lists and meal ideas, right? You can find a lot of this stuff on Pinterest. You know, my ex-girlfriend introduced me to that, and you know, I've used that to help find recipes and stuff for myself. And they talk a little bit about how, you know, athletes more and more these days are starting to switch over to a vegan diet, vegan lifestyle, because they're realizing that it is so much more beneficial. So that wraps up the whole portion of this where I run through my mangled mess of notes, you know, of facts and stuff like that. I apologize. It wasn't a little more structured, but I did want to go through this. Ideally, hopefully, it just opens up your eyes and opens your mind, and, you know, gets you to check out first and foremost the documentary, which is again entitled "What the Health," and it is on Netflix. You should check it out, and then, like I said, do some of your own research, find out for yourself, you know, and just think about it. You know, if you decide to do it, spread it, right? But, you know, I mean, I'm not one of those kind of people that wants to just, you know, be out there telling people what to do. You know, I'm not one of those, like, know-it-alls. I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. I'm flawed. But when there is just undeniable proof about things, and when clearly everything we've been doing doesn't work, right? You got to try other things. You got to experiment a little bit. You got to question, right? And I'm hoping that, and like I said, I'm not done growing. I have a lot of things to tweak and get better at, and I'm always working on that, right? But I am always searching for ways to be better in all aspects and all facets of my life. And I'm just trying to help others do the same and spread that. And hopefully, like I said, you can just take this on. Hopefully it'll open your eyes a little bit and you can see for yourself. I've never, like I said, I've never felt better in my life. I can say there have been tons of times where, I felt bloated or got, heartburn, or I just felt greasy and gross from eating, meats and dairy and stuff like that, right? Or you get like constipation, you get stopped up when you eat lots of dairy and whatever. You get all kinds of excess mucus, right? Stuff like that. But I've never once in this past year, since I've been on a vegan diet, eaten something and then felt bad afterwards. I've always felt really good, clean, and healthy. And especially now that I've started with my detox regimen, the green detox, science-based green detox is what he calls it, Thomas DeLauer, and you can go to getgreendetox.com if you want to check that out. Alright everybody, I again apologize for this being just kind of a rant. It wasn't too organized. I apologize for it being a lengthy video, but I hope you do. I mean, if you're at this point, then you watched the whole thing. I commend you on that, and like I said, I hope it can just be a little bit of something to help you out in your life, to make you a little bit better. And if you did like the video, make sure you subscribe. Please send it to your friends. Comment. I'd love to hear comments. I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to, stir some dialogue. And, just come on board and let's have a little fun. Let's talk about it. And I hope, I could have helped you out a little bit. So with that, I'll leave you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you again soon.